I've talked about EOS in the past. It's my favorite de-Googled Android ROM. They remove most Google-related things that Lineage leaves in, and they have their own set of open source apps with a coherent design language, and they also offer to replace your Google account with an account on a Nextcloud instance they host, if you want that. But compatibility for these alternative Android ROMs has always been an issue. Chances are your current phone can't run this at all. Which is why or Murena, as their parent not-for-profit foundation is now called, introduced their own smartphone that runs /EOS out of the box. They already had partnerships with Fairphone, and they sold refurbished smartphones as well, but now they're building their own. So I have a pre-production sample right here that they sent me to test, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. And to be noted, this video is not sponsored by Murena. They didn't pay me anything. I have to send back this pre-production unit once I'm done with it. So yeah, not sponsored. These thoughts are my own. So this is the Murena 2. This isn't the completely finalized design. So the back of the phone and the protection that came in the box aren't completely final and might change a little, as evidenced by the fact that both privacy switches don't have a cutout in the rubber case for now. The very point of the Murena 2 is to offer a privacy-focused phone. It comes with /EOS, which we'll talk about in a minute, and it has a privacy switch to disconnect the cameras and microphone, and another switch to completely shut off any connectivity the phone has. The first switch for the camera and mic is a physical one. It completely shuts off the connection to the camera and the mic, and no software action can bring them back as long as the switch is toggled. The connectivity switch is purely software and will just turn on airplane mode and will mute your phone. So it's more of a big do not disturb mode than a privacy switch. Murena told me that they're improving how this switch works to make sure that you can't disable airplane mode while this switch is toggled on. And they're also trying to add customization options so you can pick which software action this switch does. So think of it as a iPhone 15-like action button or a better Bixby button. But honestly, any button is a better button than the Bixby button. So that's the basics, but what does the phone actually do? It comes with a MediaTek CPU with 4 performance cores at 2.1 GHz and 4 efficiency cores at 2 GHz. It has 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, plus a micro SD card slot. It supports dual SIM, and the OLED screen is 6.43 inches with relatively slim bezels and a resolution of 1080 by 2400. Plus a hole punch cutout for the selfie camera, which is 25 megapixels. On the back you get 3 camera lenses. One is your standard lens at 64 megapixels, one is an ultra wide at 13 megapixel, and one is a telephoto lens at 5 megapixel. It has a 4000 mAh battery with support for high-speed charging at 18 watts, and it supports Wi-Fi AC and Bluetooth 4.2, and it's 4G, not 5G. And this might prove an issue for some people. For me personally, I live in France, 5G is completely useless and virtually non-existent, so I do not care. But depending on where you live, this might be a problem, and so the phone isn't completely future-proof. 4G is relatively global and should work on every carrier in the EU, Canada, and the US, although in the US it doesn't work with Verizon and they recommend using T-Mobile. So that's pretty mid-range hardware with a focus on privacy. The design is nice enough. It's basically an iPhone-like squared brick with a nice grippy plastic back. It weighs 182 grams and it feels really well built. It has a USB-C port for charging, of course, and while it's a bit bigger than what I usually prefer using, it fits nicely in the hand. It also comes with a fingerprint sensor under the power button, which works perfectly. And also there is no headphone jack here, which I am sure will annoy some people. Better get used to that though, this is basically a dead feature on every new phone coming out. I'm not saying I like it, but it's a fact. Murena also say they have a 6 out of 10 on repairability, and they will offer spare parts and schematics for easy repair. It's not Fairphone level repairability, but it's still something they're thinking about, so that's nice. They will provide 5 years of support for the software at least, and they say it will probably be more, as they are still supporting 10-year-old hardware with /EOS. Speaking of which, let's see how well this specific ROM runs on this specific phone. So, /E is now at version 1.15. It's based on Android 13 now, and it still comes with its own launcher and set of apps, which are all open source forks of other open source apps, modified to better integrate with the /E account you can decide to create, even though it's completely optional. And also, all these apps share a visual design language that most other AOSP-based ROMs can't quite reach. Of course, it's still Android, so you can replace any of that by whatever you want. On the Murena 2, EOS runs okay. It's not perfectly smooth. Animations can sometimes jitter a bit, but generally the experience is what you would expect from a mid-range Android smartphone. It's not high refresh rate, buttery smoothness, but it's definitely not annoying. In some apps, you will definitely notice these stutters, like in the app lounge when scrolling, but navigating the phone is good enough, and video playback and games run well. At least Subway Surfers and Asphalt 9 do, and we all know that there are no other Android games, are there? The haptics don't seem to be perfectly configured yet, as typing on the keyboard provides a very tiny sort of clicky rattle instead of a nice vibration, and going back using gestures also doesn't feel super tactile, but that's probably because it's a pre-production model. Generally, I cannot say what will or won't be fixed on the final hardware. What I've got is a pre-production model. Some things might be fixed in the hardware side of things, some things might be fixed on the software side of things, and some things might not be fixed at all. The two privacy switches work perfectly, with the one on the right toggling airplane mode and do not disturb, and the one on the left shutting down the camera and the mic. Both have a little LED as well to indicate that these switches are on, although the handling of them could be improved, as for example launching the camera app with the privacy toggle on will spit out an error instead of a smoother message indicating that your privacy toggle is on. Again, pre-production issues. Murena told me that they're working to fix how well these switches work. Apart from that, it's the /EOS experience I remember. You get that iOS-like launcher with a grid of apps, you get widgets with a swipe right, and you get the App Lounge, which gives you access to virtually every single app in the Play Store, including paid ones if you decide to use a Google account. Although some reports in the past seem to indicate that Google sometimes bans accounts that use alternative app stores. It looked like the banned accounts were mostly dummy ones that weren't used for a while and so were purged by Google, but it's not 100% confirmed. So if you want to download paid apps or buy stuff on the App Lounge, you probably should create an account specifically for that and not use your very own Google account. Although you also should not use a Google account at all on these kinds of devices, because that's sort of the goal, to de-Google your life. App Lounge still has the privacy ratings, the list of permissions and trackers, and it lets you filter apps to only show open source ones or PWAs only. It's still a really good alternative app store. Testing the phone further, the screen is really nice and bright with very vivid colors. It feels pretty damn nice to use, but that's probably because it's OLED. OLED screens are always nice. The cameras are pretty basic. The telephoto had a very hard time focusing on anything for me, but the other two worked fine, although you won't find the same kind of post-processing you will get on most Android phones, so your pictures might not look as sharp or well-balanced as on, say, a Pixel or even a Samsung A series phone. The front-facing camera, though, is pretty solid and produces nice pictures, all things considered. The speakers are decent enough for a phone, they won't blow you away or anything, but they get pretty loud without distorting too much or at all. They are bottom firing, there's no stereo speaker using the earpiece of the phone.
The microphone isn't great, though your vocal messages and phone calls will not sound extremely crisp.
Apart from that, you get the usual e-experience, the advanced privacy settings that let you block trackers system-wide in every app, or hide your location and IP address at the press of a switch straight from the widget screen, and the ability to manage each app's permission and see the trackers that were blocked. You get the Murena account, as I said, optional, that gives you a Nextcloud account for free, with 1 gig of storage and paid plans for more, plus a free email address, email hiding features, and Murena Office, which is only Office integrated with the Nextcloud instance. All of this comes with no ads, no tracking, and Murena says that they cannot read the contents of your email. They don't have an ad business, so they have virtually no single interest in reading or parsing or tracking you around all of this. Basically, it's a free, complete replacement with one single account for your Google account or your iCloud account, except it's hosted in the EU and it's based on open source technology. Now, for the drawback, this is all funded through Kickstarter, but before you close the video, let me just point out a few things. First, with the Kickstarter, the phone is €399. Without it, it will be $499, which is a bit steep for the specs. Second, this is coming from a not-for-profit that has already successfully run a Kickstarter campaign, and the campaign is already fully funded. It reached its goal in 24 hours. Admittedly, that goal wasn't very high at €25,000, because they don't do this to fund the entire project, they just needed it to make sure they have the minimum order quantity with their hardware partner. So what you're doing is basically pre-ordering the phone, and if you do so, it's supposed to be shipping in December 2023, all the way to January 2024, and it will be available for everyone to buy in the first quarter of 2024. As with all Kickstarter campaigns, I am not recommending that you buy or that you do not buy this thing. It's your money, it's your decision. Personally, I really like Murena. I think they're trustworthy. They've been created by the person who created Mandrake Linux. I think they've only done good things, and /E is a very good software product that I got to try on my own phones and on a Fairphone 4. I actually used it for a full year in the past. But ultimately, it's your decision to make. It's your money and you decide who you want to trust. Personally, while I like the phone, it is not suitable for my needs. It is not smooth enough in navigation, and I am too used to high refresh rates to go back to 60 Hz. While /EOS is definitely mature enough for my needs, I will not move back to it until they support at least my Galaxy S21 that's currently sitting in a drawer. At that point, I will happily jump back since all the apps I need are supported. As per the Murena 2, it's a solid mid-range phone. It's really well built, it feels really good in hand, but it does feel a bit underpowered sometimes, and whether the price is good or not will depend on your own financial situation. So if you're interested, I left a link to their Kickstarter campaign in the description of the video, so you can back that already backed project if you want to. And I also left a link to our sponsor, Tuxedo. Tuxedo sells laptops and desktops, but not smartphones yet, pre-installed with Linux. They specifically pick the hardware so that it works really well with Linux. And if there were some quirks or kinks to iron out, they generally submit patches upstream to fix that issue for everyone, not just their own computers. They have a solid range of devices that should cover all needs and all price points, whether you need an ultrabook, an affordable laptop, something super powerful, something for gaming, a tower, a NUC, a smaller form factor desktop, they have it all. All the devices have a lot of customization options for the hardware inside, but also for the keyboard layout of the laptop, for your logo on the lid of your laptop, and everything in between. And all the laptops can be opened, repaired, and upgraded, including the RAM, the battery, the SSD, and sometimes the wireless card. So if you need a new computer, click the link in the description below and buy yourself something from Tuxedo. They're the only computer brand that I use these days, and they're really good. So thanks everyone for watching the video. As always, if you enjoyed it, you can click the like button, you can subscribe, you can turn on the notification bell, you can write me a comment. If you didn't like the video, you can also click that thumbs down button and tell me why in the comment section. And if you want to support the channel, as I already mentioned, there are plenty of links in the description of the video to do just that. So thanks for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!